All right, it was a few days ago, and someone left a comment about my attitude towards the minimum wage, my attitude towards work, my attitude towards life, and the way that I see things going for most people that aren't rich. And as much as these people want to fill their brains with toxic positivity, no amount of being positive is ever going to stop you from being evicted, having your car repossessed, or having some other terrible thing that happens every day to poor people. And while I was also thinking about that, I've had people say this to me: poverty is not a good look on you. You're too educated. You spent too much time going to university to end up a total freaking loser. Well, let me tell you this: only 1 in 1,000 people would be considered truly wealthy. 1 in 100 people is considered to be well off, while the rest of us, well, we sit in that pile at the bottom. We're on the third deck of the Titanic every day that we wake up. Not a single day in my life have I ever woken up and thought to myself, it's going to be a good day. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I say to myself is, not this again. Not this job, not this life, not this apartment, not the world that I live in, not the extreme social isolation I live in, not just me working on my aquarium all day on both days on the weekend. Well, I was at the aquarium store buying some cheap supplies yesterday. I was looking around at all the employees wearing the same t-shirt. And as I looked around, there was one thing that stood out. They were all basically wearing the same generic shoes. No name brands, faded, worn to crap. And these people just looked like NPCs. The girl that was helping me must have asked me at least 10 different questions about, oh, do you need this? Do you need that? Like your typical salesperson. I asked one of the people that I know at the gym today about what reason should you get a new iPhone 17? What's the feature that really makes it stand out? Because she's a sales lady for Apple. And she said, well, the camera that records both ways simultaneously is great for recording yourself at concerts, your reaction to things. And I thought to myself, is that really necessary? Do we live in an age where you have to not only watch the thing, but also record your reaction to that thing? Like, let's say you bought McDonald's and you wanted to show that you were eating it while you were looking at your own face, reacting to the horrible taste. Poverty isn't a bad outfit. Poverty is a prison uniform. You ever notice your job feels less like work and more like a survival exercise? Exercise? 1 minute it's layoffs at sunrise, the next it's flood warnings on your phone, and somehow your boss still asks if you can come in early tomorrow. Capitalism really is the only system where drowning in the parking lot counts as poor attendance. Welcome to the new normal. Your paycheck doubles as disaster relief. I guess this script is picking up on my video that I made a couple of days ago. There's a lot of references to it. But again, I randomly generate these videos. So ChatGPT just kind of picks up on your style, I think, sometimes. All right, let's get into talking point number one. You ever notice how every dead-end job feels like a costume party nobody wants to attend? They hand you a polyester polo, a name tag, a fake smile like it's Halloween, but the joke's on you. Because you don't get candy, you get minimum wage. Capitalism loves to pretend this is a fashion. Dress codes, uniforms, professional attire, but underneath it all, you're just a prisoner in matching outfits, locked inside the wage cage. That's exactly how I felt yesterday while I was at the fish store. There was about 5 different employees there, and all of them looked identical, poor, faceless expression, smiling through God only knows what their lives are like, because these are all minimum wage workers. This morning, while I was at Walmart, it was right after I worked out and I had to go over to Walmart to get a couple of things. Oh yeah, I needed something really cheap to eat after my workout, so I bought a rotisserie chicken, and that's pretty much the poor man's meal right there. You just eat it with a fork. Yeah, no sides, no anything. You just stick a fork in the bag and you just eat the rotisserie chicken straight out of the bag, and what's left over you throw it away because rotisserie chickens are notoriously terrible for recooking, or excuse me, reheating. And that's intentional. They're a one meal kind of deal. But I was walking through the store with my rotisserie chicken in the front of my cart, and I saw this girl that I worked with at Walmart when I started working there in 2017, right after graduation. And I remember her being so excited about all the opportunities that she was going to have as soon as she finished college. And I think she was a year behind me at ASU because she still had all these hopes and dreams. And I kept talking to her, and I finished school because I wasn't working there when I was in school. I started working at Walmart after I graduated from university because there were no other jobs available at the time, at least that would hire me. And as I was telling Mello in the beginning, when I started looking for work, I was still very optimistic about my educational, continuing my education into grad school. So in a lot of job interviews, when people would ask me that stupid question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I would answer it within grad school, getting towards finishing my PhD in whatever history or whatever graduate program would take me. I wasn't really sure where you go to grad school when you have 4 bachelor's degrees, but yeah, I remember thinking about how excited this girl was. And at the time, I didn't foresee my life going the way that it did. 3 years unemployed, call centers, working in retail, the lowest form of employment for someone that was supposed to have a bright and sunny future. So today, when I saw this girl still working there, what's it been now? Let's see, 2017. It looks like 8 years later, after finishing university and still working at Walmart, I wasn't surprised because across the street where I also worked at the Kroger's, a lot of the people that I worked with in 2008 are still working there. Somehow these people just get caught in the day-to-day grind, the paycheck to paycheck. At some point, ordinary people give up on finding a better job. I would never let that happen. Every week I looked for work regardless, and I went to as many job interviews as I could because I couldn't imagine myself staying there and working in those places long term. I didn't have the right attitude. I was too outspoken. I just disliked Evil Corp to such an extent that I couldn't see myself staying there. But I didn't know where I was going to go either. For a lot of us highly educated people, there is no exact plan. We get our liberal arts degrees and we think, well, someone's going to give us a chance because we have a degree. In fact, I was just reading a story the other day where more corporations are trying to be less, how do I put this? It was a story about how Gen Z and corporations want to put experience and skills before the college degree. So just because you don't have a college degree, and let's say you're Gen Z, that they're not going to discriminate against you just for not having a college degree. But the corporation may put out messages saying, "Oh, we don't require a 4-year college degree for an entry-level job," which, as many of you know, is almost, and I've said this for many years, at least 10 years, I've been thinking this and saying this on YouTube, but the college degree isn't so much about getting you the right job. It's about letting you get a job. Because I think I read something that said, like, in the future, 6 out of 10 jobs will require a college degree just to be able to interview. And corporations realize that that means that you're discriminating against a vast slice of society that you might need to work at your corporation for $16 an hour. In fact, Mello and I were just talking about that a couple of hours ago about how tough it was because that was what Mello was making a year ago. I think she was making 18 or $19 and she'd worked in the same place for 16 years and she was still making high teens an hour. There's no way you can survive as an adult person making that kind of money. It's just not possible. I've seen Gen Z struggle to survive on these teeny tiny paychecks. Like we went to the mall today and we were walking around looking at things, just randomly doing something. We were both bored. So we went to the mall and we got up to the front cashiers, and every one of the cashiers had that look on their face. Someone else is supporting me so that I can afford to work in this mall right now. Because if you want to talk about true despair in a society, just go to a shopping mall. Everyone there is minimum wage. Everyone there is not making it. In fact, when Mel and I went to Kroger's to buy bottles of water, the first thing that I said to her when we got back to my car is like, that car right there, that's an employee car. How can you tell? We've been here for 2 hours. It hasn't moved and it's run down to absolute garbage. That's how you can usually tell. Poverty doesn't look good on anyone. Your junk car, your trash shoes, your trashy job. It's an awful look, but most of us can't afford anything better. They keep telling us, you're too smart to be broke. Like that's supposed to be comforting. No, it just makes the joke sting harder. Poverty looks great, but only when billionaires are wearing it as our labor stitched into their suits. We supply sweat. They model the success. That's inspiring. Don't you just love being the unpaid stylist for someone else's lifestyle? I kind of was a little strange for me to read that because I think I just lost my train of thought somewhere in there, but billionaires are wearing it as our labor stitched into their suits. I guess this implies that without us, the 99%, rich people can't buy that next mansion. They can't go on that lucrative luxury vacation in Europe or the Bahamas or wherever they choose to go be rich at. Our vacations are spent sleeping. When we're sleeping is the only vacation that we ever get. The only time that I get to go anywhere besides work is when I'm sleeping. In my dreams and thoughts, that's my vacation as a poor person. My days off aren't spent going on getaways or doing anything. I spend my days off usually recovering, sleeping longer, sitting at home, cleaning my house because, let's face it, when do you clean your house? When you're always at Evil Corp, right? There's no time. In the morning, you have to build up enough motivation to force yourself to go to the job, knowing full well that Monday morning will stretch into Monday afternoon on a Friday. Because as I keep telling people, Monday is just one 5-day long day. We don't need any of the other days of the week. We just need Monday when work starts. And then you can even abolish Friday. The end of the suffering of the proletariat ends on Saturday morning when they open their eyes and they realize, I'm free. The vast majority of the proletariat can't say that they're free on Saturday, or free on Sunday, or free during any day after their main job. For most people making $16 an hour, the daily hell of work is nonstop. Their only escape from the wage cage is when they have to go to sleep. When by its very nature, the exhaustion catches up to you and forces you to go to sleep at the point where you can't continue to work. Because if we could work while we were asleep, we would. Why? Because we need the money. The idea of stopping work for any working class people is a fantasy. And it forces us to work beyond our capacity. No one should ever have to work more than 20 hours a week. In my utopian world, work is reduced to 1 hour and 1 day per week, which makes just as much sense as the 40-hour work week that doesn't cover anything. When you can work 1 hour and be just as poor as working 40 hours, the system has broken completely. And there is no fixing this system. There's just breaking it down and building a new one that's more equitable to everyone that works. Just because you have to take a minimum wage job doesn't mean you should be punished for the rest of your time, for the rest of your life, for the rest of the time that you're on planet Earth with survival existence. Everyone swears if you just grind harder, you'll escape. But the truth is the system's designed like a rigged gym membership. You keep paying, but the doors are always locked. Meanwhile, you're told to stay positive, manifest abundance, think rich, while your fridge is manifesting mold and your landlord is manifesting another rent hike. But hey, smile anyway. Nothing says future millionaire in the making like reheated ramen under fluorescent lights. You know, the sad part is that today, with Mello in tow, I had to go buy a pot just to make ramen. Because I didn't have any pots that were small enough. I was making it in a large, I didn't even know what to call it. It's just a large pot. It's way too big. And I hadn't bought a ramen pot, because I never imagined that I'd be eating this much ramen. In fact, Mello today said, you need to cut back on that stuff. It's not good for you. I love when people tell you that something isn't good for you as a poor person. Like living in that apartment isn't good for you. You need to get a house. Driving that piece of crap car is dangerous. You need to get a better car. Going to that piece of crap job isn't good for you. Do you know how many people have said that to me over the years? Even my doctor, every time I see my doctor, the last time I saw my doctor was like over a year ago, they're like, that job is too stressful. You need to find a different job. And I love how everyone loves telling you what you need to do, from your job to your housing to what you do on your vacations. Everyone's trying to tell you the way. And you're sitting in your piece of crap house with no lights on so you can save money on the electric bill. That's where you actually live. Those people have no understanding of what it's like to truly be poor. And most people will convince themselves. The message in the average middle-class person's head is, I am not poor. But you also ask those same people, what's your long-term plan for getting out of the wage cage? And when that plan involves the lottery, you know that they truly don't have a plan. In fact, Mello and I were walking past the scratchers machine at Kroger's today, and I said, look, there's your chance to become a millionaire. And she kind of sneered at me. So yeah, poverty isn't a bad outfit. It's the prison uniform of late-stage capitalism. We don't wear it because it fits. We wear it because they locked the door and threw away the key. And the irony, the only people that think it looks good are the ones selling us the chains. So tell me, how long are we going to keep strutting on their runway before we burn the whole stage down? Whoa, ChatGPT, calm down. There's no need for fire here. Maybe some bleach, maybe some disinfectant, maybe a scented candle, but no, we don't need any fires. The system that they created to keep us where we are now, the very system that ironically created MillennialSteam, is the only one that we have. And if you're like me, you light a scented candle every once in a while from Walmart, the great value brand of candles, and you sit there and you wonder, is this it? I often ask myself that question. Is this it? Is this crummy life all I get? What's the point? What's the point of being alive and being poor? Because in my opinion, being alive and being poor means you're already gone. There's just a shell of you walking around on Earth still eating two fistfuls of dirt for breakfast and coming home and making that dinner too. There's nothing there for the rest of us. And there's no escape. If you have to look at a lottery machine as your retirement plan, you've already lost.